It's Clark and Perry on the case. Da-na-na-na. Clark and Perry.
Do what it takes.
Da-na-na-na. Clark and Perry. Investigate.
The activities and interests of local artists in the Windy City's finest throughout both Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, Alberta. Available on TELUS, Optic TV, On Demand, VidFlex, YouTube, and more for limited time only. Terms and conditions apply.
Da-na-na-na.
Hello, once again, to the Windy City's finest. I'm Clark, he's Perry, and we are joined one more time by Victoria Nestorowicz. Thank you once again. Victoria, where are we right now?
We are in my secret garden, or we're going in my secret garden. This is my backyard, which I must say first, I do not necessarily strive for perfection when it comes to it. But yes, I've created a little garden back here that we will go check out.
Amazing, amazing. I can't wait to kind of dig in. We, quite literally.
Yes, we will.
As well too. So let's just open up the gate and let's see what we have here as well too.
And it is gated as such because I have a massive dog, as maybe you saw in a previous episode. So that is why we have to have the gate, because we don't want the dog in the garden. He will destroy it.
This is what we have. A lot of greenery as well too.
It's very green right now, especially.
And after some fresh water as well too. So I'm gonna let you in on a little secret as well too. When I'm doing these interviews, I typically know nothing when it comes to the activities we're doing. I know nothing about gardening.
Oh,
so
perfect.
Why don't you kind of just point out to me like what is this right here?
So this is a wicking bed, and I'll say that, like, if you know nothing about gardening, that's perfect, because
Great.
Anybody who knows a lot about gardening will be like, this girl knows nothing about gardening either. So anyways, I am just like an experimenter. This is my lab here. This is a wicking bed, which I created, and my husband built it up for me. We had some old wood that we'd made a rink out of that was like starting to just kind of not be rinkable anymore.
Of course.
So we put in it some weeping tile, so some of this like piping that has like little holes in it throughout.
Right.
And so that's what's underneath inside the bed.
Okay,
and then I put a whole bunch of rocks.
I got the exit right over here.
There you go, yeah. The exit is over there, and there's rocks in it, and then I've like loaded it with like compost on top, and then every year I like add a bit of soil. I should have added more this year, but I didn't, because we're going away for most of the summer this year, so I don't have a lot invested in the garden.
Yeah.
But I've done what I can, and lots of us volunteered. Like all of these flowers, these are calendula, they're marigolds, and they've all volunteered. I planted them last year, and they just came back up, except for this. This is pigweed, and it should be gone. Anyways, so yeah, what I originally had put in here is I put in like this green, which is like a really lovely like lettuce greens. I sort of took a bunch of it out last weekend, so that's why I didn't make.
This kind of reminds me of that. There's a brand of lettuce that is actually, it came out in the past like 5 years or so. It's
like that
green leaf or something.
Oh,
I think it's something named quite simply. I can't think of it, but they have warehouses worth of it. Yeah. This looks quite beautiful, is what I'm saying. Is that it looks amazing.
It's nice. It's a really good salad. Like, I love it. You're welcome to, like, if you're like me and you want to just like try a bit, you can. Like, it's kind of just washed, so you can grab a piece off.
Amazing.
The more red is going to be more bitter, right? So like if you want like these leafy, these are almost like a little bit like that buttery lettuce, sort of the like softer leaves that aren't too grainy.
Let's try this one here.
Yeah, try it out. Give it a little bite. Lettucey.
Very lettucey, which is good. You don't want to be surprised by anything else. You're just like, yeah, that tastes like bug spray. Uh-oh.
And then this is parsley here. I actually, the library I was working in this past year, we had one of those it was like a big tower garden. So I had a bunch of herbs that were growing in there. So I transplanted them into here when we finished school, and they were really babied in that area. So they didn't love being transplanted. So this basil is that. It was like long and leggy, and it's not super happy here, but it does have some new stuff coming to it, so I'm not going to get rid of it just yet. And then I've got like parsley here, which is very parsley-y and yummy. And then basil here that I did actually plant. So I really like basil. I like planting a lot of it, and it does okay in here. It does really good in like a black pot on my tabletop, because it likes the sun and it likes the heat and stuff like that. So
I have to ask about a specific term as well too. You mentioned that a few of these plants here were volunteer. Right. What does that mean?
Like they just showed up. They just
showed up?
I didn't even have to seed them. I didn't have to get the seeds at all. They just kind of like came. Well, these guys came back, so I don't know if they'd be like necessarily volunteers, but like I don't know. You go to the garden center and you would kind of pay a pretty penny for these. I didn't expect them to seed so well back in here, but I think the soil is really good in here, and it's got the compost underneath, so it does pretty good.
And so for more of just kind of like the idea behind you gardening, like what exactly, so I see some beautiful flowers as well too off to here. I don't know what these are called, but you obviously grow some food produce for your own consumption, I'm assuming. But what else do you grow out here? Like, what do you get out of gardening?
Mostly, honestly, for myself, it's just like a sense of like accomplishing something. And
Yeah.
I grew up with like a grandma who was, we called her a baba, and she was like my Polish grandma, and she was a great gardener, and she did it like for food because she grew up in, like she came up during the war and came in Canada, and they had a really small garden, and that was like their food source. They fed themselves really well by having a garden and having some like livestock and stuff like that. So it's a little bit in memory of her. It's a little bit because I don't want to forget like those skills. Like my family didn't really, they gardened for like beauty and had nice flowers and stuff like that. Like my dad had a pristine yard, but not a lot for food. And then my aunts, who I talked about in a previous episodes as well, were gardeners. And again, it was more for food because they were in that sort of Burns Lake area in like central BC. And at that point, I mean, they could get food from the grocery store as well. But having like your own food source is optimal as well,
and
right?
you're saving money in the long run as well too.
Yeah, sort of. Like it sort of depends how you garden. This year, definitely, like I didn't really spend any money on the garden.
Wow.
But you can spend a lot of money gardening because especially if you're replenishing your soil and you want to get really good soil, like you can compost, which I do, and that is a good way to get soil too. But it's always nice to get like a fresh load of like really good soil. And then sometimes like seeds aren't bad, and now like the Lethbridge Public Library, a lot of libraries will do what are called seed libraries, and so you can go in and you can like take little packets of seeds and plant them in your garden, and they do pretty well. Those are peppers, and these guys are like just their red peppers, so they'll be turning red. And my husband's from the south of India, so he loves really spicy stuff, so I was like, I'm gonna grow you some peppers. And then I've got like a little bit of thyme here, which is something that like often we'll use in our like Christmas turkeys and stuff like that as well.
Yes, I use thyme quite a bit.
Smell it, it's nice and fresh. This was another one that was started in that like little like greenhouse, green tower that I had. And so it's not super happy here, but it's gonna be okay. And then again, this is dill that just volunteered. Dill has really all over my garden this year. I think I planted it once like 5 years ago, and that first and second year I was like, I barely have any dill. And now the last 2 years I'm like pulling dill.
You have more.
Like if you go in my shed right now, I have like a herb dryer, and there's like, it just smells like dill because I took a bunch of dill out.
Volunteer. It just shows up, right?
Yep. But I like dill too. Like that's why. So again, we're not here a lot this year, so I planted a lot of potatoes because I was like, well, at least if I plant potatoes, they don't need a lot of attention, and then they'll probably be ready. Like I thought some would be ready now, but I pulled out a plant today and I didn't have much going on. So usually they're ready when they start to die off. Sometimes when you get the little flowers on them like those ones have.
Which ones are we talking about here?
These guys here. So you get like these little flowers, and you can say like, oh, I must be getting a couple little potatoes under there. I could probably harvest some like not as many as I would if I just let the plant die down, but I'd get some. But I learned today that doesn't really mean many. So I will let this guy live until he dies. And then, and the potatoes are kind of funny because like you got to plant them and then you got to mound them. And even how I've mound them, that's my dill.
The dill?
That's the dill.
Okay.
You can smell it. You can smell it everywhere. It is like super smelly dill.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, and it's so good on potatoes, right?
Yep. Yeah, it definitely is.
I'm
not a dill pickle fan myself.
Not a dill, okay.
Those types of chips are not my
your
forte.
favorite. Oh, I love dill. And then I've got this guy here, which is lavender. I was trying to like throw away the thing because I didn't want you to see a brand. But this is lavender, and I did purchase this one. And you can. Do you like lavender? Are you okay with lavender?
I do. Yeah.
Lavender is
that is
good.
Approved.
Yeah. So I had lavender here 1 year, and then it died back. Doesn't do great in Lethbridge, but it'll last a couple of years. So I decided to invest in another plant because I really like lavender. I like to dry it, and then I just like put it in little sachets or put it in your drawer or something in a sachet, and it's kind of a nice smell. So,
you know, so we don't have to play with hard numbers here or anything, but you mentioned that you knew that you weren't going to be spending too much time in the garden this year.
yeah.
So how much money would you say that you've invested in the garden per year or so?
Per year?
Yeah.
Well, like in this part of the garden, not a ton, because like I say, I compost and stuff. So the first year that we got this house and we like started in this plot, I would say like, I think I bought about, I bought a big like yard of soil from one of the companies here, and those soil yards, I think they're about $150.
Okay.
So, and I think we threw that all in here, and then since then sometimes I'll grab a bag of soil, just like I'll seed, and then I'll put that soil on top, because the soil can get really compacted and really dry, especially in this back area, because it gets a lot of sun during the day.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, I apologize because I left a mess of onions there, but that's why those are doing so well, I think, is because like they don't need a lot of attention, those onions there. But yeah, so I throw down seeds. I'll just put like a store-bought soil on top, which will go like, depends on the type you buy. You can buy cheap kinds, but often if you buy like the cheap soil, it'll have weeds in it, like seeds and stuff like that. And you'll be like weeding and be like, oh, what is this? And you know, you never really know until it gets kind of big.
Right.
So yeah, I think probably like $20, you know, like in seeds and soil this year.
Amazing.
And I ran a seed library at the school I was at, so I was able to get a lot of seeds, and I gave a lot of seeds.
Yeah.
Like these calendula flowers here. So these are in the same family as the marigolds.
Okay.
They are cousins of such. Yes. So, and I don't 100% know the difference. I'm not going to pretend I'm that smart. But these like are what you would call calendula, and those are what you call marigolds. But they're like the same family of like, I believe calendula officialis is like the technical term.
Right.
So, and I wrote a song about it. But yeah, these ones, they can be used in like often if you like get like baby creams or like anything for diaper rash, or, you know, it was said like long ago, this is kind of like the poor man's saffron. So you can use it like on your rice or something like that.
Okay.
And because it's a plenty, right? And then it also can be used like, apparently blondes can use it for like hair dyeing and stuff like that and whatnot. So it's a very useful plant. It's not delicious.
No.
You can like eat the petals. Like sometimes I'll put the petals on a flower, but I made the mistake one year of like, when I didn't have this box, putting all my leafy greens here, and then all these grew up with them, and then I would accidentally get one of these, and these are like hairy fuzzy things, and they're not good. I think they're probably even like borderline poisonous. So,
oh goodness.
You know, you got to be careful. Same with like potato leaves. You would never want to eat those. Same with tomato leaves. Like I used to do tomatoes, but I don't eat a lot of tomatoes personally. And tomatoes are really finicky, like especially here in Lethbridge, because it gets so dry. Tomatoes need to be like consistently watered, and I don't have a watering system. Like that is something that if you're a gardener, you should really have a watering system in place before you even start. And that's like the biggest expense, right? But I was just like, well, this plot is here and I'm just going to go. So I do have like a rain water system, but that we haven't got a lot of rain this year.
I kind of saw that.
So it's not super hooked up.
Yeah.
Because I haven't got a lot of rain out of it. So I did use the rain that I did get into it this year. This is just straight up coming from the eaves, like straight up coming from whatever falls on the house. It'll just go into there just because we haven't got a lot of rain. But otherwise I would put something in here, and then I would like use a hose here. This isn't the optimal system either. Like if I had my way, which I will one day, I just have to get my husband on board with me to do this. Or I just need to do it myself, really. But I would shift this over here because it's never good to have water near your house. I would shift it on this side and build up a little bit of a bigger platform, maybe something about this tall for it. And then you would get like a good pressure to come down and feed.
Right, yeah.
So I know like I did a permaculture course, and like that's a big thing is water. And yeah, that would be a good way to do it. And then you could even do something like what I did in the wicking bed, where you have the weeping tile underneath your garden, and you're watering from underneath rather than above.
Well, and I find it's trying to think outside the box, really.
Yeah.
And trying to find easier ways to make your life easier, right?
Yeah, totally.
And
right?
I mean, tons of people have like a variety of different experience, right? And no judgment here. Like how do you organize this garden as well?
It's not.
It's not.
There's really no organization going on.
And that's okay. That probably works out in your own favor as well.
I think
too.
sometimes it does, and like from what I like, because I took this permaculture course. So from what I learned, I mean, basically in the middle is what is like a herb spiral, and everything that I have in there pretty much grows back every year. And like the chives look horrible now because like all the little puffs are not looking great, but it was looking lovely before because I get those nice little purple puffs, and I can still use those chives. Some of them are a bit woody, so I wouldn't use them in my cooking, but there's still a lot of really nice like green shoots in there that I would still use. And then I have oregano here, which is gone to flower. Like it's been so hot and we've had such limited water this year that a lot of things just kind of bolt and go to flower.
Right.
But it's still usable. Like this oregano is still, you can give that a sniff if you are okay with oregano.
Ooh. Oregano time. I use these spices all the time here. Try that. Try that, Perry.
Oregano.
He likes.
That's the good stuff, right? And then I just have to, I get these big yucky weeds that are easy to pull out. It's some kind of thistle and it's horrible. But anyways, and then this is sage. So this is often, I can't remember. I think it's called Russian sage. I believe that's the name of it. So you can give that one a sniff. This is one that I could make into bundles, and I sometimes dry it, and you can burn it, and it smells quite nice.
Yeah,
so,
no, this smells really nice.
Yeah, and it's like really taken over. Like I've cut this thing down. I cut it in half last year, and it's like bursting. It's doing
It demands to grow.
Yeah. But like something like this in the center of your garden is so aromatic, like it's so smelly, and the dill as well, that it kind of does reduce the amount of bugs that you would have. Like it would help with that.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So, and that's the same, like there is like a little bit of method to my madness, like having the flowers along the outside of the garden will help with like say pollinating the flowers of like my squash plants, because it'll like draw in more bugs to pollinate those so that I get some squash, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, stuff like that. And then this is garlic here, and this again, let's see if we can dig up a garlic bulb, because I think we can probably get some garlic out. It might not be like super ready, but it'll be good enough. And so garlic I haven't planted again for a little while, because I am a little bit of a lazy gardener. And I'll let you know what, actually, I'm going to grab a big shovel so that we don't puncture it.
I have the tools. I am ready.
I'm going to get this big guy, because then we'll go around it. Because sometimes I go through it. And then
size does matter in this case.
Does
perfect.
Kind of a little bit. So yeah, like if I was a neat and fancy gardener, I probably wouldn't have like 4 garlic things growing out of one. Probably this is a piece of garlic that I didn't harvest last year, and it's just like doubled in size or something like that. It can be used as well when it's scrapes, so just before it turns into these like bulbs on the top. And then these bulbs on the top, though, when they fall down, that will actually also produce garlic. So it could have been that as well. So like I said, I don't buy garlic anymore, and I don't really plant it anymore. It just kind of comes. So because I don't harvest it all. But I do usually harvest like as much as I can find. So let's see hopefully I'm not. We might be getting a couple garlics here. Let's see. Oh, little tiny ones. They're very tiny. So yeah, just little guys. These ones are. But, I mean, they would still be quite good, and you're welcome to take home some garlic if you like.
Oh, boy.
It's just little tiny cloves, these guys, though.
Oh, nice.
But, and then I have,
so how long would these typically be growing?
I would probably, like, keep them in until September, maybe end of August.
Okay.
And then I would get them out. And I think that, like, even, you know what I'll do, as I'm going to plant these 2 little guys back, because I think they'll do okay. And I'm pretty sure I've done this before. Again, I'm slightly a mad hatter when it comes to this stuff. It might die off at the top, but at least if I can't harvest it this year, then I'll get a new bulb next year.
Right.
So, but we've got these 2 guys. We'll
Excellent.
keep those guys. And we'll like give this one a little bit more space. And you can see, I think that like probably some garlic bulbs have fallen here from before, like maybe it was a top or something like that. So yeah, I'm just gonna like dig it in. Eventually I'll give it a bit of water so it's not just like in a dry, soily mess. And yeah, you should be okay. And if not, then like I said, it'll probably be fine for next year to do another thing with garlic. So it's not really a waste. These guys over here are cilantro, but cilantro in Lethbridge it's a sad story because it's so hot, it bolts, and then you can't use it anymore. But the nice thing about cilantro is once it goes to seed, it's known as coriander. So you can like puncture up those seeds, you can put it in a mortar and pestle, or you can put them in like a little grinder, and you can get cilantro. So they're not ready yet for it. They would turn like a orangey, yellowy color sort of a thing. And then you can get that out of it, or you can just like let it, again, I haven't planted cilantro for years, but it'll just volunteer because those seeds will go down into the ground. And then usually I can get some the beginning of June when it's a bit cool, like leafy greens, kale, cilantro, that's all really good at the beginning of June. But because it's so hot here and this year's been really hot, those things aren't doing great.
All of this has like, all of this here has a plethora of experience and information to kind of gather as well too. What would you consider like your main source of info? Was it your course that you mentioned, or would you say more experience, or the combination of both?
I think it's a combination. Like that course I did, like permaculture, and the way that I took it from Verge Permaculture up in Calgary. Yeah. And they were fantastic. It's taught from like the Rob who teaches it, he's an engineer, and he teaches it more from the perspective of like that sustainable living. So it's like all about houses and building greenhouses and getting your water system and stuff. It's not so like much on gardening. But it does, like they show you their garden and they have some incredible ideas, and you talk about wicking beds and stuff like that as well. So I learned a lot through that. But yeah, a lot of it is like, again, kind of being like, what did my grandma used to do? And like looking back at pictures of how she used to do things. So I used to have these like a raspberry bush over there, and it would give me good raspberries, but it was like right in the middle of everything and you couldn't walk by it because it was pokey. So then I was looking at pictures of my grandma's old garden, and she had like, it was basically like this kind of setup, and she had raspberry bushes all along her back fence, or like her side fence between her shed and her fence. So I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. So I stole that raspberry bush and I put it here. And it's like, it's going to take some time because I think I shocked it pretty good.
Is this it right here?
Yeah, this is it here. So I shocked it really well. I won't get any raspberries this year for sure. And this area too, it had a tree in it. So it's like really, like it's quite good soil if you get down to it. And then it really doesn't look that way right now, but it also, I put in a lot of like, a lot of compost and stuff like that. I used to just let my sunflowers just kind of like lie here afterwards and die. So I think raspberries don't need a lot of nutrients. They need a lot of water to start off. So that's why I think I shocked this guy, because I probably didn't water him enough either. But eventually it'll come back. And eventually I think it'll thrive in this location. I just need to give it some time because it doesn't get a ton of sun. It doesn't get a ton of water, but once it's already
going,
thriving,
it's going to be contagious. Yeah.
Raspberries kind of take over. So I'm going to maybe even have some problems with it in a couple years. But I mean, who doesn't love raspberries? They're so good.
Right. Exactly. And I noticed as well too that you have like some sunflowers kind of bordering
they are
the outside of the garden as well too.
Yes. They just take over. Like this area is something I'd actually just like to turn into a bike pad. But right now it's Sunflowers City, so I'll just let them be, because again, this doesn't get sun here and it doesn't get water really like it does now because I had that watering thing on, and it has this. So in Lethbridge we have this really horrible bellflower weed, and these are the leaves of it, and as long as you can like snuff out the weeds or the leaves of it, it doesn't grow because it like needs the sunlight to like shine on the leaf in order for it to grow.
What do weeds like this do?
It chokes out your other flowers. So it's not even that it's that horrible, and the flowers are actually edible and they look kind of pretty on a salad or something. So if you get a little bit, it's fine. But if you get a lot, it'll kind of take over. And it's the same with like this bindweed. So I have this, and my husband, who's not from here, he's like, well, leave it, because it's like taking over the grass and it's like green, and the grass isn't even green anymore because it's so dry here.
Yeah.
But the problem is it chokes everything out. So eventually I'm going to want to get rid of this. And I should have in the first place. Like I use a just like a push lawnmower that just leaves everything on the ground. And so this I don't think was all that bad when I moved in, but since I've been mowing the lawn with that and then spreading it all over, it's gotten really bad.
Yeah.
So it needs to be like, basically we need to bring in like a land mover. Like we need to like move the earth away and like, you know, truck it out and get rid of the grass, or we need like a flame, like a blower, like to burn it out.
Wow.
It's pretty like, and as soon as like I break it off, it's like got more places to grow, sort of a thing. So the more you like break it off, the more you even like dig it out by the root. Like you need to dig it deep out.
There can be some really problematic weeds then in that case as well too.
And like I hate to call things weeds, because like even things like you've got like dandelions and this, which is why is it leaving my brain? This is a kind of it's gonna come to me again. It's my age. I just forget things. But this can be used like in making like salves and stuff like that, like as like kind of like an ointment sort of a thing. So some of this stuff I just let grow. Plantain, it's like a type of plantain. It's not like the banana plantain that would grow in the tropics, but it's used like, you can use like the seeds and you can use the leaves and stuff like that as well. So I'm kind of, sometimes I feel bad calling things weeds. And then like dandelions, which most people hate, like you can eat their greens as well.
That's actually, so funnily enough, we had interviewed Melissa Fry from an earlier episode. And for folks who are tuning in right now, go and check that episode out as well too. But they are a forager, and they actually go and grab dandelions to eat in their lettuce for the most part as well too.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize you could just eat these things.
Yeah, like bitters. Bitters are like a digestive, right?
Yeah.
Like it's what like people, you know, you have a drink of bitters or something like that before or after your meal, and it's a digestive. So that's what's used. And like even if you have like a bunny or an iguana or something like that, you can feed them dandelion leaves. Obviously anything in moderation, but even the flowers of dandelions, like every bit of dandelions is medicinal. And they were actually, did she explain that they weren't even like native to this area?
Yes.
Like they were brought in by like British or like white settlers.
Yeah.
100%.
Because initially they were beautiful and now they're everywhere.
And now we hate them and now we just want to get rid of them. But they're like, I have a song where I'm like, please heal our liver losing lives, because like they're a great liver tonic. Like you can use them and you can make wine out of them and stuff like that, and it's supposed to be like.
They also made like a taproot coffee supplement type thing as well too.
Totally.
It just blew my mind.
Yeah.
So are like out of the time that you've had the chance to experiment and learn from gardening, has there been anything kind of like that mind-boggling? It's like, oh, I didn't even realize that was the thing.
Probably.
You might be surprised.
These walking onions, like I didn't realize that like things would just come back, right?
These ones back here, that's right.
Yeah. I think I just always expected like, oh, I'm going to have to buy seeds every year, but you really don't. Like once you get something going, you can save your seeds and you can keep going. And like potatoes, you can just save potatoes from the grocery store that you threw in the cupboard and forgot about, and now they're growing like little roots, and you're like, oh, let me dig those in the ground and then mound them up, and you can get some potatoes out of those, like provided that they don't have a growth inhibitor on them, which sometimes they do at the grocery store.
Right.
But yeah, so those, and like seeds from squash, like a lot of the squash I grow, it's like stuff that we've bought in the store, even stuff that like would be like tropically grown, and then I've thrown them in the ground here and I've gotten some squash out of them. So squash need a lot of nutrients to grow, so I put in a lot of squash and stuff this year, so we'll see how it does. And from what I've read, I don't know how true this is, but I think you're only supposed to like let like one squash on a vine grow. So like I should probably be picking off some of these flowers and getting rid of them. But again, I'm not good at playing God in the garden. I'm like deciding who lives and who dies.
Yeah.
But you can eat the flowers of squash too. Those are apparently, I think you can like eat them raw, or you can fry them up and they're kind of tasty. So yeah. And then these onions, which we talked about earlier, like they are called Egyptian walking onions, and they look horrible right now. I should really just take a whole bunch of them out. But like these guys, like they just, oh, let's see. They're almost like a shallot. Like they're super tasty.
Yeah.
Again, you can take it home if you like. And then these guys, I could just throw back in the garden. I can just do that and then throw them back in the garden. And next year I'll have more onions, you know, I'll probably cover them. I probably won't. Well, I probably will leave them like that. Let's be honest.
Don't like playing God, you know. Let's just sprinkle them out there every now and then too.
That's how I garden kind of, which for better or for worse. Like one of my cousins, he grew up with his grandpa is very Italian, and like by the end of his life, it was like perfect rows. Everybody was like astounded by like how perfect his garden was. And then when I was talking to him the other day, I'm like, was it always that perfect? He's like, no, he used to just like throw things out, but like it's in his old age, he got a little bit more
meticulous.
Yeah.
And
So I'm like, well, maybe when I have time.
Well, I was going to say a lot of people, and I think some viewers might feel the same, like a lot of people might feel a little scared off from getting started into gardening because, you know, they're used to seeing everybody with their perfect rows and all that stuff too. So I'd actually like to really compliment that you're able to really go against that norm, right? And still be able to get what I would consider something out of the gardening, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, like the fact that you get a couple potatoes and some squash and like herbs, especially, like really, I think I got into gardening at first just to do herbs because I like studied herbology, and I was like, oh, it's good to like have the sage for tea, or have I usually do my mint in a pot because it will take over everything, but like that kind of stuff for, again, like after your dinner or something like that. So yeah, it started that way, and then it just has grown into a beast.
That's amazing though. No, and a great use of space as well too.
Yeah, sort of. I think I still have a lot to go on space use, but thank you for saying that. I also like, I'm working with this, like, so I don't know if you've heard of the Three Sisters before. So that's like something that like traditionally Indigenous people would have done with when they were doing like their form of planting, when they started planting and doing stuff. So the Three Sisters are corn, squash, and beans. And so I've got corn here, and what happens is as the corn grows tall, you get the squash, and the beans, well, I didn't plant the right type of beans for this, but anyways, they will like grow up the corn so that the corn kind of holds as the trellis, and then the squash and the beans grow up it, and they're like called, we learned this in grade 6 if you're in education, is that they're called the Three Sisters. So that's amazing. So yeah, it's kind of cool. I haven't done a lot of corn. I did corn once in the front of my balcony area there, my little deck, because I wanted it to be like, I just was like, oh, let's make a little corn, like it'll look pretty and it'll like block the sun a bit. And when I had read about it, it was like, well, actually you can't plant corn in a row. You have to plant it in a block, because for it to like cross-pollinate and for you to actually get corn off of it, you need like a block of corn. Yeah. So I had planted
you can't
that
just
row.
Have a line,
Well, you're not supposed to, but I planted that row and I did get some corn out of it. So then I was like, oh, okay, well, I will try it here. And I did one last year and I got some corn out of it. So this year I plan to put in more corn, and there was more corn that was here, but I think the onions probably overtook it.
No, that makes sense. I did corn pollination as well too. As like kind of a summer gig as
well. Cool.
Yeah, they have to be laid in boxes. Yeah. Because it's just the variety of the winds and everything as well too with the bugs. Yeah. I don't know the sciences of it. I'm sure there's a lot behind it though, especially in this. But it looks like you got some corn growing as well too.
Yeah, we're getting like little tiny corns, and yeah, we'll probably get a couple out of here. Again, like usually, like if I was to get corn out of here, it would be something I'd like throw in with potatoes and dill, and that would be like, you know, some dinner one night. So I wouldn't necessarily grow it to be like, we're gonna be eating corn for weeks. It's more of
just an occasional dinner or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Exactly.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's an amazing, just kind of grand, big overview of what your garden is for the most part. It sounds a lot of things that you can get from it. You can obviously get yourself a few suppers as well too, but also kind of just holding some traditions that you have from your own family.
Totally.
So I really appreciate that insight, and I'm sure our viewers feel the same. I hope that folks have learned something, because I know certainly I have when it comes to gardening too. But I think that's going to be all the time that we have. So thank you again once more. This has been the Windy City's Finest. I'm Clark. He's Perry. And Victoria, why don't you send us off?
See ya. Thanks for coming and checking out my secret garden. Running away.
It's Clark and Perry on the case. Clark and Perry, do what it takes. Clark and Perry, investigate.
The activities and interests of local artists in the Windy City's finest throughout both Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, Alberta. Available on TELUS, Optic TV, On Demand, VidFlex, YouTube, and more for limited time only. Terms and conditions apply.